What's on the Food Network?
That line implies the existence of Guy Fieri in the bad guy's canon. Yeah, the sky is blue, the grass is green, and I'm talking about the bad guys again. Next, you'll tell me that it's a day that ends in Y. Today, however, is a bit of a different story. You see, in the past, I've covered a scene from the movie, the Christmas special based on the movie, the Halloween special based on the movie, a trailer to the sequel to the movie, the book that inspired the movie, but not the movie itself. Why is that? To be honest, I haven't reviewed the film until now for two reasons. First, the love I have for this movie is complicated, and I was worried that if I gave it an amateurish review, I could risk discrediting the movie for my viewers. Second, I didn't feel the need to make one. At the time of its release, The Bad Guys was lauded by online communities as a return to form for DreamWorks after a rocky track record in recent years. However, now that DreamWorks has released more critically acclaimed films such as Puss in Boots: The Last Wish and The Wild Robot, some have begun to look back at this film as a mediocre film at best that the internet only praised because we were so starved for a good DreamWorks movie. Well, now that I've rewatched the film a few more times and have a need to remind people how great this movie is, let's dive into DreamWorks' little redemption story. You're watching the LionDog show, and I'm reviewing The Bad Guys. Since it's the aspect of the film that everyone can agree is good, let's start off with the animation. Why yes, James, it is indeed very good, but it's worth at least 3 exclamation points! To address the shark in the room, this movie owes a lot of its visual identity to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, as many recent animated projects do. You see this the most with the cel-shaded elemental effects. I mean, look at that explosion. There's no fooling me. That's a Spider-Verse explosion if I've ever seen one. Also, the rap sheet introductions bear a striking resemblance to the Spider-Verse comic intros. Of course, The Bad Guys takes a few pages out of Spider-Verse's book, no pun intended, but we need to address the animation's second biggest inspiration, anime. Try as I might, I never got into Lupin III, but even I recognized its influence all over The Bad Guys, maybe even more so than Spider-Verse's. Wolf's lanky, exaggerated poses and movements are similar to Lupin's characteristics, and Chief Luggins is Zenigata if he were a ginger. Moving away from Lupin III, the human characters greatly resemble Akira Toriyama's designs. You could place these extras in a Dragon Ball video game and they wouldn't feel out of place. More generally, they even give the characters subtle sweat drops at certain points, and I think that's why the animation works so well. Subtlety. It blends hints of all these inspirations together in a way that it all just fades into the background. Instead of constantly noticing the inspirations, viewers simply immerse themselves in gorgeous animation and excellent heist action. As for the setting, the filmmakers based the city heavily on Los Angeles. Now, since the last time I even stepped foot in California was before LEGO Indiana Jones The Original Adventure was released, I can't verify how faithful it is to the city itself, but as a standalone setting for the film, I love it. It somehow manages to be simultaneously high-end and low-end, with gorgeous buildings sprinkled amongst old-fashioned diners and worn-down car washes. It all looks so eye-popping, yet still feels like a lived-in place. Okay, we've beaten around the bush enough, we need to address the designs of the characters. The bad guys all have great designs. They definitely took a few creative liberties by giving the Fin Bros limbs, and Tarantula's transition could not have gone better, but they gracefully translated the frightening yet lovable designs into the third dimension. On the opposite end, the most drastic design would be Tiffany Fluffit going from a cat to a human. This brings us to the most obvious departure from the source material and one of the dumbest complaints that I always hear about this film, the Human-Animal Society. I swear, so many people who discuss this film always comment how humans and animals coexisting makes no sense. Even Cinema Therapy felt the need to bring it up, but I just failed to see the issue. If this were the first franchise to do this, I would understand, but this concept has been around since the days of Looney Tunes. You don't see anyone striking points off the day the Earth blew up for never addressing why animals and humans share a community. I mentioned earlier how the humans' faces resemble the works of Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, which also features humans and animals living together. You don't see people complaining about that. Why? Is it because Dragon Ball is a fantasy franchise? Oh, well that makes sense, because a guinea pig harnessing a meteorite's telekinetic attributes to control his kin into robbing his own charity is grounded squarely in reality. What about Cats Don't Dance, a quintessential cult classic animated film? That film uses humans and animals coexisting to explore prejudice in a similar vein to The Bad Guys, yet only one of them received scrutiny for doing so. I get the feeling that people only state these complaints because Zootopia raised the bar when it comes to anthropomorphic storytelling, and now everyone expects all future animal movies to feature elaborate world building. I, on the other hand, think that the filmmakers made the right choice with this decision. We've been receiving numerous animal films in the past decade, and integrating humans into their society helps this film form more of its own identity. If they kept the animal-dominant society of the book series, they likely would have received even more criticism for allegedly ripping off Zootopia. I mean, mean, just look at how much flack Sing got before its release. Outside of visual identity, the blended society helps tell the story. I've read somewhere that the filmmakers chose to integrate humans so that the audience could put themselves into the world and ask themselves how they would respond to living with predators. Yeah, I don't know if I'm more woke than the average moviegoer because that effect was kind of lost on me. Maybe it's my stupid furry brain, but I attach myself way more to the grumpy introverted snake than the human scientist with serious daddy issues. Regardless of who the audience finds more relatable, the human-animal society tells the story through how it categorizes the characters' roles in the world. There are the scary animals as the have-nots, the lovable animals as the elites, and the humans as the masses who simply follow whoever has the upper hand at the moment. It allows the key players to stand out more. Sure, maybe there could have been some sort of explanation for how both humans and animals came to walk the earth as equals, but with a 100-minute runtime, what would you rather see? Ocean's 11 with animals? Or a history lecture? There are far more important aspects for this film's story to highlight, like the third act breakup, or the twist villain, or the fart joke. More so than the human-animal society, many people criticize the story as this film's weakest trait, and while I get why they would say that, I also think some of their points are kinda hypocritical. They say how the film is generic because DreamWorks has already made both a heist film and a redemption story. Oh yeah, Disney has made numerous princess movies, yet no one complains when they make another one. They say how the plot is incredibly predictable, which makes the film bad as a result. Oh yeah, people praise How to Train Your Dragon all the time despite its plot traveling well-worn territory, and they always defend it by saying that the way they tell the story and the characters make it a masterpiece. Well, that's how I feel about the bad guys. Look, if there's one thing this movie is not, it's unpredictable. Even from the first trailer, I could tell you that Marmalade would be the villain, that Diane would be some sort of vigilante, and that Wolf and Snake would be torn apart due to Wolf's desire to go good. Despite that, while watching the film for the first time, every single by-the-numbers plot felt fresh and entertaining. Why, you may ask? Because of this! My favorite types of films are the ones that are like an enormous clock, where all the little cogs mesh together. Why is Back to the Future one of my favorite movies? It's because almost every single thing that is introduced in that film has a role to play later on. Even if you know that he might make it back to the future, it is still both captivating and satisfying watching how everything comes together to bring the audience from point A to point B. The Bad Guys does this exact same thing. For example, I just mentioned how I suspected that Diane would be a vigilante, but the fact that they snuck in that casual remark about the Crimson Paw early in the film allows the reveal to not feel like an inevitable cliche, but a natural part of the world. The film does this all the time with other small details. When the lamp shaped like the meteorite is introduced in the film, it's under the guise of yet another lowbrow piranha running gag, which makes its resurface during the third act all the more shocking. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. Diane's ring, the grappling hook, the push pop, the golden dolphin, Snake's hatred of birthdays, Piranha's singing, even Piranha's farts are all given proper setup and payoff throughout the story. If I had to criticize the film's setup and payoff, I need to mention how within the first 2 minutes of the film, they established that Mr. Snake loves nothing more than eating guinea pigs. The film later features a scene where he swallows hundreds of them, but when it ends with him planning to double-cross the central antagonist, a guinea pig, he doesn't even attempt to eat him. Why? Outside of that unfulfilled payoff and another plot point that I'll discuss later, the film uses all of these plot devices and setups to craft a captivating film despite the obvious plot beats. It's suddenly no longer about where the audience will arrive, but how they get there. While casual moviegoers might not have been surprised by the direction of the film, fans of the source material might have been. You see, unlike most book adaptations which adapt a single book in one film, since the Bad Guys books are so short, the film takes plot points from the first 4 books and ties them together. The Bad Guys rescuing the cat out of the tree is from book 1, the guinea pig heist is based on the chicken heist from book 2, Diane rescuing the guys is based on a scene from book 3, and the army of mind-controlled guinea pigs is based on the horde of zombie kittens from book 4. That's not to say that this film is a one-for-one adaptation of the books, because there are a ton of deviations. Just to name a few, the Bad Guys' reason for going good in the movie is initially to avoid prison time instead of Wolf merely wanting a new reputation. The Bad Guys' reputation is developed through their thievery rather than them eating other animals like in the books. Diane is a retired criminal turned politician, while her book counterpart is a secret agent named Ellen. Marmalade is a filthy rich philanthropist, despite him being a filthy rich mad scientist in the books. And Chief Luggins? doesn't even exist!
Not happy!
As someone who ranks the original Percy Jackson film as one of my least favorite films that I've seen, I can totally understand fans of the book series being disappointed that the film only vaguely follows the source material's plotlines, especially with how DreamWorks faithfully adapted both of Dave Pilkey's franchises. But at the same time, I understand the filmmaker's thought process. With the short, inconsistent nature of the books, they would not work in a faithful film adaptation, maybe a television series. If DreamWorks adapted the first 4 books as they are into one film, it would be an incoherent film, which is an issue that I had with the Dogman film adaptation. The filmmaker's flexibility with the source material allows the movie to still honor the book series while creating a story that fits into the medium of film. In some ways, the film even elevates the book's plotlines. The reveals involving both Marmalade and Diane have a lot more impact because the bad guys got to know them earlier in the story. Connecting the chicken farm heist with the zombie kittens gives the former more purpose, and expanding the cat in the tree turns what felt like a simple filler chapter into a crucial part of Wolf's character arc. Speaking of which, let's talk about Wolf's arc. Well, it could have been just a simple plot about him learning that doing good just feels good. Wolf wrestling with what society expects him to be, what his friends expect him to be, what Marmalade expects him to be, what his girlfriend expects him to be, and ultimately what he wants to be is relatable and well done. One change I would make is Diane's line during the dance that clinches Wolf's redemption. Wolf doesn't go good right after saving the cat due to the wedge that Marmalade forms between the group, where he convinces Wolf that going good means losing his best friends. However, when the bad guys win over the gala with their impromptu performance, it proves to Wolf that they can go good with him, as proven when they argue at prison. But Diane's line during the pause within the dance only focuses on Wolf being accepted by the public, which doesn't matter since Wolf has already been accepted by the public for rescuing the cat. It would have been more effective if, instead of saying, "How does it feel to have everyone not fear you for a change?" she said, "How does it feel to have everyone not fear you guys for a change?" That way, the line still focuses on Wolf, but also applies to the others, making Wolf realize that he doesn't have to choose between his friends or the good life. Outside of that opportunity, Wolf's struggle for acceptance forms the emotional core to the film and leads to some great drama with him and the other guys, especially Snake. While on the subject, I also hear people wish that Webb's Shark and Piranha also received character arcs, but I believe that they made the smart choice, focusing mostly on Wolf and Snake. While the filmmakers could have done more with the other 3, I worry that the film might have lost its focus as a result. It would be like the Sing movies, where over a half a dozen characters are fighting for screen time, leading to none of the character arcs feeling well thought out or satisfying. If you ask me, I would choose one great character arc over 5 mediocre character arcs any day. Besides, while the kids don't have any major plot lines, they still have their moments, such as when they save Wolf and Diane even after Snake supposedly abandons them. While not every member of the team shares equal significance, the film still allows every member at least one chance to be the coolest person in the room. Wolf gets any scene with him driving, Snake gets him double-crossing Marmalade, Webbs gets her shutting off the whoopus, Piranha gets him seen at the gala, and Shark... okay, almost every member. Unfortunately, Shark never got a scene to himself, unless you want to count him throwing Piranha, and I believe I know why. While Shark has an important role in the team, his contribution as the Master of Disguise is so inherently comedic that it is near impossible to make it cool. It's hard to pull off a Mission Impossible mask reveal when it's painfully obvious to your audience who's behind it. Still, I wish that they would have at least tried. There exists concept art of Shark disguised as Cuddles, likely intended for when the kids break into Marmalade's compound, and I wish that they left it in the final film. They could have had him break into the torture chamber by tricking a facial recognition scanner into thinking that he's Cuddles. Maybe they could have hidden his face from the audience until the reveal. It wouldn't have been perfect, but they should have at least tried. Outside of Shark getting shafted, the film does a great job at making every member feel important despite their lesser impact on the plot. But above all else, this film does a spectacular job at making the entire team feel like real friends. Right from the very first shot of the film, they get the viewers invested in Wolf and Snake's friendship, not by telling you how they met, but by showing you the camaraderie the two share. Also, whoever suggested starting the film with Snake's birthday deserves a raise, as it flawlessly demonstrates how much the team cares about Snake, even if he may not openly appreciate it. They may fight and annoy each other, but when the chips are down, there is no one else they'd rather fight or annoy. There's a common saying that the best characters can work well in any scenario, and the bad guys' ability to elevate the most below-average holiday specials is proof of that. They make this movie feel just like hanging out with your best friends that you never knew you had until now. Which is great for me, I'm a YouTuber, I don't have any friends. After the bad guys, we should discuss their 6th Ranger, Diane Foxington. They could not have utilized her any better in this film. Before I saw the movie, I feared that she would hijack the movie once her relationship with Wolf got started, and would end up turning the movie into Mr. and Mrs. Wolf by the halfway mark. But no! The filmmakers put her in just the right amount of the movie. She gets to be the angel on Wolf's shoulder, she gets to be Wolf's potential girlfriend, she gets to be a cool vigilante, she gets to go on a short mission with Wolf, she gets to help foil Marmalade's heist with the rest of the team, and that's it. She's in just enough of the film that I'm not wishing for more of her without her stealing the spotlight from the rest of the team. It reminds me of Petunia in The Day the Earth Blew Up, where she gets to play an integral role within the story, who gets great chemistry with a main character without stealing the spotlight from the central friendship of the film. And what great chemistry! Wolf and Diane's relationship could have been another plot point done out of obligation, but whenever the two are alone together, you can just feel that they're bringing out the most authentic version of each other. If you prefer fluffy Venom, that's perfectly fine, but you can't deny that this isn't romance for romance's sake. These two truly have something going for them. Moving away from main characters, Luggins is a great foil to the team who probably gets the most consistent laughs out of me every time I watch the film. Tiffany Fluffit, on the other hand, stands as probably the weakest character in the film, as she only serves as occasional exposition and as an embodiment of the vapid society of the film. However, she does give the audience this great line:
"Tonight's headline, change is impossible.
You should always judge a book by its cover, and all stereotypes have been affirmed."
Then that brings us to the big bad, Rupert Marmalade the Fourth. The series should have stopped at Rupert 2 if you ask me. Now, Marmalade is a character who I couldn't care less about when I first watched the film. However, after recent viewings, I now have a new appreciation for him. Is this partially due to my theories involving his role in the sequel? I'll never tell. As for the proper canonical Marmalade, he serves this role as the twist villain competently, even if the audience could see it coming from a mile away. He may just be a one-note greedy narcissist, but he is an entertaining one-note greedy narcissist, especially when he's given the room to play supervillain, with the twist being revealed halfway through the film. The only issue is that less than a year later, DreamWorks would give us another villain cut from a similar cloth who took everything Marmalade did up to 11, making him feel kinda tame in comparison. Outside of his comedy, his plan makes sense for the most part, as he not only convinces Wolf to take the bait, but he also plants doubt amongst the team so they won't work together to counter him. That is a pretty clever way of turning the third act breakup from an overdone trope to a necessary part of the story. It also implies that Marmalade has a semblance of respect for the team, admitting that they're smart enough to escape prison and to counteract his plan. Overall, he's a better Bellwether, but a worse Jack Horner. Oh man, that's my second favorite Spectrum! Also, while I'm discussing Marmalade, do you remember when he hides his face and scratches the truck doors? I wonder if the filmmakers initially planned to reveal him as an alien in that scene. That wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility, especially since the scene also contains a reference to a deleted scene where Snake tries to eat Marmalade. I also wouldn't be surprised if him disguised as the old lady was initially him having shape-shifting powers. Overall, these characters stand out and play off each other so well that it disappoints me that any TV series will likely be a prequel. The character dynamics established in this film are ripe with potential for a Sonic Boom style show that's half action-adventure, half sitcom. The only issue with that idea is that it would likely be missing a key component of those character dynamics: their actors. The bad guys just might have one of the best voice casts of an animated film in quite some time, and we have one man to thank for that: the book series' author, Aaron Blabey. Since Blabey is a massive movie buff, he requested specific actors play specific roles, and the casting team luckily gave him every actor he requested. As a result, the cast doesn't feel like a celebrity hodgepodge for the sake of marketing. It instead reminds me of an early Pixar movie where they casted famous actors rather than popular actors, if that makes any sense. The biggest name that this movie has to offer is Awkwafina, but she does a great job as Webbs, possibly the reason I don't hate her as much as others. When it comes to the highlights, Alex Borstein as Chief Luggins captures her animated personality so well. This might be due to Borstein having the most voice acting experience from her being the voice of Lois Griffin. While she's not my favorite performance in the film, the fact that she is for many others means that the choice paid off. As for my favorite performance in the film, look no further. Your actor has arrived. Richard Ayoade is the only actor who could play Marmalade. His higher-pitched, hoity-toity British voice enhances Marmalade's cute yet annoying facade and fits incredibly when he's revealed to be the villain. While Jack Horner is the better villain, the quality gap between him and Marmalade might be closer than I thought, since Iwadi gives a performance that fits his character much better than John Mulaney. That's not to say that the rest of the cast doesn't give it their all. Of course, all of the bad guys as actors play off each other very well, despite them not even recording together. And this doesn't apply only to comedic scenes either. During the breakup scene, Sam Rockwell's delivery of the word "guys" is utterly heart-wrenching, and Mark Maron's response to him is just as painful to hear. DreamWorks can try and replace them with sound-alikes, but those actors could never replicate the magic of this movie. It truly has
the perfect cast.
Okay, I think I've proven enough just why I love this movie so much. So it might come as a shock to you that I have a major issue with this movie. Despite how amazing the animation is, despite how creative its simple plot is, despite how endearing its characters are, and despite how talented its cast is, this movie messes up something that no great movie ever should. Its third act. Okay, the third act doesn't completely falsify my previous praise for the film, but it does dampen the momentum that this film had going. To be generous, I will begin with the positives. Despite many animated films ending with an elaborate chase scene, this one is still pretty fun, especially with the licensed music selection. But the magnetized cross-circuit interceptor thing was pretty stupid. Those aren't self-driving trucks. More notably though, the lamp reveal absolutely floored me when I first watched the film. The only twist rivaling it would probably be its likely inspiration from Ocean's 11, but that reveal doesn't feature Daniel Pemberton going to town with the score. Speaking of which, hot take, but his work on the bad guys tops both Spider-Verse scores in my eyes. Or ears in this case. Outside of those bright spots, yeah, this climax is pretty anticlimactic. For starters, the bad guys turning themselves in felt odd. Don't get me wrong, I love the idea, as I appreciate kids' movies that end with the protagonists not receiving everything they want, and I like the idea of their final step of redemption being them taking accountability. Within the context of the film, however, it feels out of nowhere. The moment follows right after Wolf covers for Diane, which makes it feel like Wolf convinced his friends to give up on the freedom that they worked so hard to achieve just to please his girlfriend. Maybe it would have been more satisfying if they built up to this moment, but they don't. The closest that the film gets to setting this up is Chief Luggins proclaiming that she'll catch them someday. But the bad guys weren't there to hear it. What gave them the idea that they should give up? This decision just feels so unearned, especially with so many other plot points getting paid off in the very same scene. But hey, that makes more sense than Wolf's plan. While the "who do you think put that one push pop in the fridge" moment has become one of my more forced running gags, the plan surrounding it just feels like a series of lucky coincidences. For starters, how on earth did they clean out the hideout so quickly? That looks like at least a day's job. Also, what would have happened if Shark found the push pop first? Does Wolf just know that Snake is the type who always checks the fridge even when he isn't hungry? Moving over to the scene with the golden dolphin, why would Wolf grab it? You'd think an expert would notice the obvious bait. Also, he already denied himself the golden dolphin once before. Why would Wolf want the dolphin at that point, despite Marmalade? The way Wolf approaches the dolphin looks like bad acting, meaning that he might have fallen for the trap on purpose. But that's even more stupid than if he didn't know that it was a trap. I know that he had faith in his friends saving him, even though that part of the plan had its own room for error. But what if the trap killed him instantly? If Wolf so desperately wanted to involve the others into the heist, then why not just set up the push pop and watch them from afar? Then, once they have their tingle moment, surprise them and invite them along. In the long run, it might have saved them more time waiting for a bigger team than the time wasted from falling into the trap. Of all the places to include a flashback explaining the plan, this is the place. Yet the filmmakers opted instead to turn this into one last gotcha moment. But in execution, Wolf's line feels like the punchline to a joke that no one in the audience understands, and leads to the film ending on a pretty sour note, even with the epilogue. Overall, while the first two acts seem to get better every time that I watch the film, the third act always seems to get worse. So, those are my thoughts on the bad guys. With how much I reference this movie throughout my videos, you might be surprised to learn about my issues with the film. I still love the movie, maybe even more so than when I originally saw it. But when I need to speak objectively, the film has numerous flaws. It just, fortunately, has a lot of positives that help blot them out. I mentioned in a previous video how you don't always need the best story to make a great movie, and I believe no film brings cadence to that belief than this one. The story, while clever in its tropes, is standard and has its fair share of plot holes, levels, but when the characters are all memorable, the action is outstanding, the score is Pemberton at his best, and yes, the animation is very good, that is more than enough for me. If my reasoning wasn't enough to convince you that this is a great film, that's perfectly fine. It's by no means a perfect movie. But it's the perfect movie for me. I feel like DreamWorks' ultimate goal when creating it was making a movie that I would love, and they succeeded. It may not be DreamWorks' best, it doesn't even scratch my top 5 films of theirs, but hey, who said this was the end? This franchise is only just getting started. If the series follows in the footsteps of its main characters by learning from its mistakes, the bad guys could eventually rival the likes of How to Train Your Dragon, Shrek, and Kung Fu Panda. Only time will tell if that ends up happening, but regardless, we'll always have this film. The film that redeemed DreamWorks. You've been watching The LionDog Show. Have a great day and stick around for more.